Incredible act of kindness. Single mom's car repair leads to life-changing proposal after 3 days. Sarah stood in her cramped kitchen, her breath catching in her throat as the phone rang. She glanced at the screen, her boss. She had been expecting this call, but a fleeting thought of hope fizzled as she answered. The clinic needed her for a last-minute shift, the urgency palpable. She nodded, trying to hide the tremor in her voice. Of course, I'll be there. Another shift meant she could pay for groceries, and yet bills loomed like shadows. Her ancient minivan sputtered ominously in the driveway, a constant reminder of her worsening predicament. Clattering dishes surrounded her. Their accumulated grime felt heavier than ever. 8-year-old Lily and 10-year-old Max rampaged through the living room, their infectious laughter often testing the limits of Sarah's patience. They were everything to her, but in her heart she wished for a moment's reprieve, just one night without the suffocating burden of responsibility. Stepping outside, panic gripped her as she turned the key in the ignition. Nothing. No reassuring cough from the engine. Just silence. Her legs felt like lead weights, fear creeping up her spine. What if she missed work? What if they couldn't eat? As anxiety clawed at her throat, she envisioned the double-edged sword of her choices. Repair the old van or feed her kids, knowing she couldn't do both with the meager funds she had. She hesitated, stomach churning as tears threatened her resolve. The clock was ticking. Each minute without the van pulled Sarah deeper into a spiraling sense of dread. She had always prided herself on being self-sufficient, a warrior against the weight of her world. Yet now she felt the chains of despair tightening, each option branching into an impossible nightmare. Her resolve wavered. The very identity she had forged from sheer determination began to fracture under the pressure. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the weight of decision bore down on her like a vice. Just when all hope felt lost, a figure appeared, a mechanic named Mike. He approached with an open demeanor that felt oddly comforting in her storm. "You look like you could use a hand," he said, concern etched on his face. Sarah hesitated, but then found herself divulging snippets of her life, her challenges, the endless juggling act. Over the next 3 days, as Mike worked on her minivan, they exchanged stories, each revelation knitting a fragile bond between them. Yet, with each laugh, every shared memory, a growing conflict brewed inside Sarah. Could she allow herself to rely on this generosity? When the repairs were nearly complete, Mike looked serious, almost cautious, as he stepped into uncharted territory. He wanted to be more than just her mechanic, a proposal wrapped in soft vulnerability that left Sarah reeling. Fear of needing someone gnawed at her, the implications for her independence twisted inside her stomach. As night fell and uncertainty loomed large, she grappled with a looming question. Could she open her heart again and allow someone to share her burdens? In that moment, with shadows creeping closer, the fragile flower of possibility bloomed, but so did the tangled roots of doubt, leaving Sarah standing on the edge, her future waiting to unfold, one heartbeat at a time. Dawn broke, spilling muted light into Sarah's kitchen, illuminating the remnants of her late-night worries. She stood, staring at the cup of cold coffee, the bitter taste reflecting her unresolved feelings. The proposal had settled like an unwelcome guest in her mind, demanding attention she was hesitant to give. Could she balance her independence with the warmth of companionship? Determined to regain a sense of control, Sarah turned her thoughts to her children. Lily's beaming smile and Max's insatiable curiosity were reminders of what truly mattered in her life. Those moments of joy were earned through her sacrifice and hard work. But now, with Mike's offer lingering, she felt as if she were at a crossroads, straddling two worlds that were both equally intimidating. Was she ready to open herself to someone, risking vulnerability? The monotony of her daily routine had been her shield, her fortress. Going back to the clinic, she wore a brave face while attending to patients. The shift felt endless, each moment saturated with the pressing need to prove herself. Yet, in between administering care and listening to patient stories, Mike crept into her thoughts, stirred by accidental reminders. The sound of his voice, the faint scent of motor oil on his clothes, the way he listened without judgment. The connection they forged was undeniable, but so was the fear of entanglement. Reflecting on her life, Sarah recalled her dreams of becoming a nurse, a career choice aimed at helping others. She had set aside her ambitions for her children, spinning the threads of her existence around them. But was it selfish to want something more for herself? While the children's laughter filled their home, solitude whispered her name, shadowing every corner of her heart. Glancing at the calendar, Sarah noticed an upcoming open house at a local community center. It was an opportunity to explore something outside her routine. That small voice nudged her towards a courage she hadn't felt in years. Faced with the daunting reality of stepping out, she felt an unfamiliar flutter of excitement pierce her uncertainty. Perhaps this was the moment to rediscover herself. After the kids were settled for the evening, Sarah opened her laptop, navigating to the community center's website. The range of workshops offered was astonishing. Not just art or dance, but also personal development classes that piqued her interest. How long had it been since she allowed herself to think about what she wanted? Wrestling with her thoughts, she thought about applying for one of the workshops focused on self-improvement. A deep breath steadied her racing heart. She clicked the registration button, an impulsive yet deliberate decision. It felt like planting a seed in the soil of her hidden aspirations. Each line of the form was a promise, a pact with herself to embrace change. Later that night, as sleep eluded her, Sarah dissected her choices and thoughts about Mike. Was he sincere, or was this just a fleeting infatuation? Opening her heart felt like standing on a cliff's edge, the wind whipping through her hair as she prepared for flight. The uncertainty of what lay at the bottom loomed large, but so did the allure of the leap. As dawn light crept into the room, casting hopeful patterns, Sarah resolved to embrace uncertainty, to explore avenues of growth both personally and interpersonally. With a newfound determination, she found herself smiling at the day ahead. The tension of balancing her responsibilities and exploring new paths would undoubtedly test her. But before she could take that first step toward discovery, a familiar voice echoed in her mind, Mike's voice, full of sincerity. "If you ever need a hand, I'm here." The weight of that offer pressed on her heart, igniting a flicker of potential. Who was she truly becoming in this tumult of emotions? Would she be able to merge her identity as a mother with her desire for personal growth? The answers remained elusive as the world outside buzzed with life, teasing her with possibilities yet to unfold. As she stood at the precipice of change, uncertainty mixed with excitement, a decision loomed, one that would test her stamina and lead her down a path less traveled, while the shadow of vulnerability hovered nearby. Could she confront the evolving tides of her life and the choices that awaited her? The moment of truth was approaching, and Sarah knew she had a decision to make, both for herself and her children. But could she find the courage to take a step into the unknown? The morning sun bathed Sarah's modest living room in a soft glow, casting long shadows that felt familiar yet foreign. Her heart raced as she sipped another cup of coffee, the warmth bringing momentary solace. The workshop she had registered for loomed ahead, And with each passing moment, anticipation wove itself into anxiety. What if she didn't belong? What if she failed to connect? As she organized the remnants of her children's breakfast, Sarah thought about the emotional edifice she had constructed around herself. Each plate she washed and every chair she pulled in felt like a step away from that fortified shell. The idea of stepping into the unfamiliar filled her with both dread and eagerness. Through the chaos of motherhood, she sought to reclaim pieces of herself that had gone dormant. The clock ticked down to her first workshop. She had chosen a class focused on self-discovery, aptly named Renewing Your Spirit. The name alone ignited a flicker of hope inside her. It wasn't just about learning, it was about unearthing the Sarah who once dreamt of a broader life, a life defined not only by her role as a mother, but by her aspirations as a woman. Arriving at the community space, the unfamiliar bustle both overwhelmed and invigorated her. Colors bounced off the walls, voices mingled like a symphony of warmth, and the energy crackled with potential. As she walked through the door, doubts clawed at her. What if she came across as too guarded, too unsure? The first few moments felt like unsteady footing. Sarah observed her peers. Some engaged in animated discussions, others alone but visibly excited. Striking up small talk felt daunting, yet she pushed herself to venture beyond her insecurities. Taking a deep breath, she approached a group. "Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm new here," she managed, her voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. They welcomed her with open smiles, and soon conversations flowed with the ease of old acquaintances. It was freeing to share her journey as a single mother, and she found herself listening to their stories too, connecting over shared struggles and common goals. Each interaction chipped away at the barrier she had maintained for so long. As the workshop began, the facilitator encouraged participants to visualize their dreams. Sarah closed her eyes, allowing herself to drift into a space free from doubt. Images materialized, her children thriving, laughter filling their home, her practicing self-care, perhaps even cultivating relationships beyond friendship. She felt a swell of strength, a glimpse into the woman she could become. The activities transformed her vulnerability into power. She discovered how to articulate her desires, igniting a flame of ambition she thought she had extinguished long ago. Embracing new ideas and voicing her aspirations unshackled her from the chains of self-imposed limitations. However, a lingering question haunted her thoughts. Could she reconcile this newfound clarity with her feelings for Mike? The idea of stepping into that possible future terrified her. Seeing him as part of her life defined her past struggles and insecurities, magnifying them within the possible framework of intimacy. As the workshop concluded and participants filed out, Sarah felt a shift within herself, a profound realization that fear could no longer dictate her narrative. She was not just a mother. She was a woman deserving of growth and joy. As she stepped into the sunlight, she suddenly wanted to pick up her phone and reach out to Mike, share the exhilaration pulsing within her. But before she could dial his number, a voice interrupted her thoughts. "Sarah, wait." It was a fellow participant, Jenna, waving her way. "What's up?" "I just wanted to say how brave you were to share today. We need more voices like yours." The words flowed through Sarah like a gentle current, fostering a nourishing sense of self-worth. Maybe she was starting to accept herself, not just as a mother, but as an individual with dreams, setbacks, and, importantly, the potential for connection. As she left the community space, Sarah's mind raced. She had experienced the first step toward transformation, but the road ahead was still uncertain. With Mike's thoughts simmering at the surface and a renewed sense of self emerging, she was at the cusp of a decision. Would she reach out and embrace this new chapter? Could she find the courage to weave her budding aspirations into the fabric of her existing life? Just as her heart settled into a rhythm, another thought struck her. What if he has his own fears about this too? The moment of truth loomed ever closer, and a barely perceptible tremor of anxiety tinged her excitement as she pondered what tomorrow and perhaps Mike might bring. As the sun dipped below the horizon, shadows lengthened across Sarah's path, mimicking the uncertainty she felt brewing within her. Driving home, she replayed Jenna's words, the warmth igniting a flicker of self-appreciation, but doubt lurked just beneath the surface. The conversation with Mike loomed large in her mind. Was she ready for that? She turned the key in the ignition, the engine humming to life like the hope she had begun to nurture. At home, the familiar chaos enveloped her. Her children's laughter mingled with the usual clatter of toys and kitchen sounds, creating a cacophony that settled her nerves. As she kneaded the dough for dinner, her mind wandered back to the workshop. The resonance of shared experiences echoed in her thoughts. Each woman had brought forth their truths, and Sarah realized her story, once cloaked in shame, now illuminated her strength. She gazed out the window, watching the children play, their joy a reminder of the innocence she longed to protect. But the image of her future began to shift. She no longer saw a stagnant life limited by traditional expectations. A new desire unfolded, feeding into her ambition, the yearning to forge connections, possibly even with Mike. A tentative thought surfaced. Could he find solace in her journey as she was seeking in his? Determined to explore these feelings, Sarah grabbed her journal. Writing had always been her refuge, a canvas for her thoughts. She scrawled her frustrations, desires, and hopes, her pen moving furiously across the pages. It felt blissfully liberating, capturing the essence of her renewed spirit. With each sentence, her self-doubt began to untangle, revealing a clearer picture of who she was beyond motherhood. That evening, as the din of dinner settled, her youngest child climbed into her lap, eyes bright with wonder. "Mommy, can we make art together?" he asked, radiating infectious enthusiasm. Crafting was an activity Sarah had shelved long ago, but the infectious spirit of her child ignited a flicker within her. They gathered supplies from around the house, and for a few precious hours they created together, their laughter interspersed with creativity. In the midst of those simple joys, Sarah stumbled upon an incredible realization. Crafting was another avenue for expression, her own form of empowerment. The ink and paint transformed her thoughts into tangible representations, illustrating who she was and who she aspired to become. Each brushstroke echoed her burgeoning dreams, clamoring for acknowledgement. The following day, emboldened by the experiences shared with her children, she grasped her phone, ready to text Mike. The screen lit up and words danced on the tip of her fingers, but hesitation swept over her. Was she truly ready to lay herself bare again? That evening, a thunderstorm rumbled to life outside, and she felt an unsettling sense of urgency. In the blink of an eye, Mike's number was on the screen. It had been too long since they last spoke. Heart racing, she pressed send, the decision crystallizing between the storm's thunderclaps. "Hey Mike, I've been meaning to reach out. Can we talk soon?" The message left her fingertips like a prayer into the digital ether, an act of vulnerability she had not embraced in some time. She sat back, breathing deeply as the storm outside mirrored the tempest within. Was she prepared for his response? Would he welcome her back into his world? Or had she opened a door better left untouched? As anxiety battled with excitement, a different kind of question tugged at her heart. What if this was the beginning of something transformative? As the rain poured outside, she felt a belief burgeoning deep inside. Connection was not just a possibility, it was her choice to seize or to step away from. But as the minutes passed in agonizing suspense, she couldn't shake the feeling that uncovering her own truth was only part of the journey. What came next would determine if Michelle's burgeoning aspirations could coexist with the specter of a shared past. Suddenly, the phone chimed, a message blinking on the screen. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. What would Mike say? A new chapter hinged on that one reply. The phone chimed again, jarring Sarah from her spiraling thoughts. Her heart raced as she hesitated, summoning the courage to read the message. Each moment stretched painfully, her breath quickening in anticipation. Finally, she glanced down, fingers trembling slightly. "Hi, Sarah. I'd love to talk. How about tomorrow?" Relief washed over her, mingled with the foreboding twist of uncertainty. This was it. The moment could redefine everything. She marveled at how a simple exchange of texts could ignite so many emotions within a single heartbeat. Tucking her phone away, Sarah tried to focus on the dinner table, but her thoughts felt tangled. Was she ready for this? After all those months of silence, the conversation might dredge up all the complexity she had tucked behind the walls of her own self-doubt. It was one thing to forge a path of self-discovery, but another to invite someone back into her life who could potentially scatter her ambitions like shards of glass. That evening, after tucking her children into bed, Sarah returned to her journal. She scribbled down thoughts about the impending meeting, channeling her insecurities into written form. Could she communicate the changes she had undergone? The bold woman who reached out to Mike was different from the one who had shielded herself in silence. Yet, was this new version enough to face him? Prompted by both anxiety and excitement, she pulled up the notes she had written about her experiences with the craft work, the joy it had brought her in the chaos of motherhood. Could art become her metaphorical armor for the conversation to come? She drew a picture on the next blank page, abstract strokes that symbolized her journey. Each mark represented a facet of her growth. The moment she chose to connect with her children's innate creativity, the rekindling of her interests, and the strength she had summoned to reach out to Mike. In the following days, she prepared for the meeting, her heart a heavy pendulum swinging between hope and trepidation. The tension bubble in her chest burst on the morning of their talk. What if she revealed too much or too little? What if old wounds reopened, leaving scars exposed again? Determined to wrestle with her anxiety head-on, she planned the conversation in her mind. She would speak honestly about her growth, about embracing connection instead of shying away. But there was still the lingering question of Mike's feelings. Could he accept her transformation? Did he even want to rekindle their connection? As the hour approached, Sarah felt a rattling pulse of energy surging through her, like the tension in a tight wire ready to snap. She reviewed the values she held dear: authenticity, courage, and the ability to build a future on her terms. It was vital she communicated this clearly, not just for herself, but to establish their footing if they were to navigate any shared history with purpose. Arriving at the cafe, the familiar smell of brewed coffee filled her senses, creating a warm cocoon against the chill of uncertainty. As she settled into a seat, her stomach churned with nerves and excitement. With each passing second, the walls she'd fortified began to crack under the burden of anticipation. Then, there he was, Mike, stepping through the door, a thin veil of hesitation etched across his face. Their eyes met in an exchange that flickered with shared histories, both new and old. As he approached her table, Sarah prepared to confront not only their past, but also her evolving self. As she opened her mouth to speak, the reality was that this conversation could either fortify her newfound strength or unravel it completely. "What if he doesn't see the woman I've become?" echoed in her mind as she squared her shoulders. The moment of truth lingered in the air as she met his gaze, feeling the weight of unanswered questions press heavily down upon her. This was the juncture where she could either retreat or step boldly into her new narrative. As Mike settled across from her, the air thickened with potential, a mixture of unease and the intoxicating possibility of what lay ahead. How could she lay bare her heart without losing herself in the process? And with that thought looming, she realized that this moment would demand not just her self-awareness, but also the courage to confront what it meant to truly connect. Sarah inhaled deeply, trying to gather her thoughts as Mike shifted in his seat. The cafe hummed softly around them, but the noise blurred into a distant echo as she focused on his familiar yet changed face. What did the past mean now? Was it merely a backdrop to the new story she envisioned for her future? "Hey, Sarah," he began, his voice wavering with an undercurrent of tension. "It's good to see you." The warmth in his tone sent a ripple of comfort through her. It reminded her of their late-night conversations that delved deep into dreams and vulnerabilities. But those discussions felt like relics of a different life, a life before motherhood molded her identity, before self-doubt crept into every aspect of her existence. "Good to see you too, Mike," she replied, steadying her voice. The atmosphere was thick with shared moments waiting to be unearthed. The weight of what to say next loomed largely in her mind, a multitude of possibilities that could end in bliss or disappointment. She decided to open with her truth, the essence of the woman she had become, instead of the shadow he might remember. "I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, about who I am now, the choices I've made for my family and for myself." As her words flowed, she felt frayed edges of anxiety start to weave into a fabric of clarity. She narrated her journey, how art had become her sanctuary, a refuge amid chaos, providing a voice when silence felt sharper than words. She observed Mike's expressions, seeing flashes of understanding transform his initial hesitation. "You've really embraced that part of yourself," he said, nodding. His acknowledgement filled her with a mix of validation and fear. Was he genuinely proud, or could it be merely politeness? Could he grasp the depth of her experience? "And the kids," she continued, "they push me to keep evolving. Every day, they remind me about creativity, about finding joy in the little things. I've learned that it's okay to pursue dreams alongside motherhood." Mike shifted again, his brow furrowed as if he was contemplating her words more profoundly. The lines on his forehead deepened, revealing some internal struggle. "That's really inspiring, Sarah," he finally replied. "I always knew you had a spark inside you, but to see you igniting it like this, I didn't expect it." His honesty opened a door she dared not hope for. A simple compliment resonated loudly, elevating her confidence. "Thank you," she responded, feeling a buoyancy lift the weight off her shoulders. It hasn't been easy. The raw truth of her struggles slipped out before she could filter it. "There were weeks I felt lost, but I've tried to embrace the mess. There's growth in the chaos, don't you think?" The moment held its breath between them. He kept staring at her, perhaps searching for connectivity or familiarity. What she had unveiled was not the polished image he might have remembered. Instead, it was a raw portrayal of resilience, transformation, and self-acceptance. "It's so easy to forget that," he said quietly. "I've been trying to find my footing too. You never really know what you'll do when your life takes a different turn." There it was, the common thread of their experiences. They both stood on the precipice of change, desperate to validate their paths while also striving to understand what was next. As she looked into his eyes, clarity dawned on her. This was not just a reunion, but a moment defined by new beginnings, a chance to reevaluate their potential as individuals and perhaps together. Was it too soon to acknowledge the possibility of a connection, one that transcended their past? She prepared to disclose her most vulnerable hope, the one that danced just beyond her grasp. But the prospect of sharing it mingled with shadows of doubt, leaving her hesitating over her next words. "If we were to—" she began, but the cafe suddenly quieted, consuming her voice before she could finish. She caught herself, surprised by the rush of her thoughts, but the tempest of emotion she had locked away was surfacing fast. What would Mike say if he knew the depth of her aspirations? Could she really risk everything for a chance at something more meaningful when uncertainty still wavered in the air? And just as she readied to reveal her hidden dream, a text vibrated insistently in her pocket. Their eyes briefly met, a silent agreement hanging in the air. Would she confront the truth of her feelings, or pivot to something else entirely, as another distraction looms with undeniable urgency? With her heart racing, the tension escalated. What revelation awaited her in that message could shift everything she was striving for, just as she stood at the edge of a potential new chapter? The buzz of her phone was both a jolt and a distraction, pulling Sarah abruptly from the tender moment she had been sharing with Mike. For a heartbeat, she felt the warmth between them wane, replaced by anxiety as a cascade of thoughts rushed through her mind. What if it was news she didn't want to hear? What if it was something that could derail everything she hoped to explore, both with herself and with Mike? With a hesitant hand, she checked the screen, her heart pounding. It was a message from her brother, needing an update on a family matter back home that required immediate attention. A wave of responsibility drowned her moment of reprieve. But then again, wasn't this what she had wanted? To juggle not just her dreams but her familial obligations as well? Yet, right now, it felt like a chain pulling her back. She looked up at Mike, who had been watching her, brow slightly raised in concern. It almost felt as if he could read her thoughts, the frustration, the worry, the grappling need to remain present while life thrust its demands upon her. A part of her wanted to share the weight of her responsibilities with him, to let him in on the complexities of her life, beyond motherhood, beyond art, pieces of her that, until now, had remained hidden. Sarah? His voice was soft, a gentle reminder that she didn't have to bear everything alone, not in this moment, not with him. She took a breath, steadied herself, and decided then. "It's just my brother, family stuff," she said, her voice carrying a hint of vulnerability that startled her. It was a step towards openness. "What's going on?" he pressed, genuine concern etching deeper lines across his face. It struck her how much she appreciated that Mike seemed ready to engage, rather than retreat. "He needs an update on the family home repairs. It's a mess right now. I should probably head back." The words tumbled out reluctantly, like stones in a brook. Each one a realization that linked her past with the present. She was still the caretaker, but could she become more? "Hey, family comes first," he replied, but there was an undertone of something she couldn't quite place, disappointment or understanding. She couldn't tell, but what she did know was this. She wanted to connect more deeply, to transition from the past to a future that valued her growth. "Can I ask you something?" she ventured, staring directly into his eyes, willing him to see past the surface. "Of course. What if we both took a step towards, I don't know, exploring what we've built apart? You know, not as remnants of our past, but as individuals who've grown." The thought hung between them, the idea of redefining their relationship feeling audacious yet exhilarating. "I'd like that," he said slowly, that warmth returning to his eyes, illuminating the shared space they occupied. The moment was thick with the possibilities they could dare to pursue together. The chill of the evening air enveloped Sarah as she walked briskly, her mind swirling with conflicting emotions. Each step away from the cafe was a dance with urgency, yet her heart was tethered to the conversation she had just left. Mike's earnestness lingered with her, a flicker of hope igniting her imagination about the possibilities of a shared future. She glanced down at her phone as she strolled, her fingers tapping on the screen, reading once more her brother's messages. Each word bore the weight of obligation. The repairs back home needed her attention, just as her children did. The juxtaposition of her responsibilities and her dreams tugged at her spirit, creating a dissonance that was hard to ignore. Could she redirect her focus from being solely a caregiver into exploring her own identity? Arriving home, she was welcomed by the familiar, comforting chaos that accompanied her children. Their laughter and small bickering tugged at her heart, a reminder of the precious moments hidden within the frenzy of family life. But under all that noise, she found herself questioning the balance of her priorities. Did her children truly need only her physical presence, or could they also benefit from a mother who was fulfilled and vibrant? After dinner, while the children settled in with their evening routines, Sarah moved aside to a small corner of the living room, her makeshift workspace filled with art supplies. It had been too long since she touched her paintbrushes, too long since colors danced across a canvas under her fingertips. Setting out her materials, she hesitated. Where do I start? The blank canvas seemed daunting, yet it also beckoned to her. With a deep breath, she dipped her brush into the vibrant hues, each stroke helping her to escape the confines of motherhood, even if just for a moment. The act of creating felt like a gentle rebirth. It was a reminder that she was capable of producing something beautiful beyond her daily roles. But as she painted, her phone buzzed again, an unwelcome interruption. It was a video call from her brother. She frowned and wiped her hands, the paint slipping away from her fingers as she picked up. The concern etched on her brother's face was evident. "Sarah, I really need your help with the house. Mom's going to lose it if we don't tackle this issue soon." The frustration built inside her. Why couldn't things just settle for a moment? The sacred space she carved for herself barely had time to take root before the weight of responsibility descended again. "I'm juggling everything here," she blurted out, feeling vulnerable. "I want to help, but I also need to take care of me." Her brother looked taken aback. "I didn't know you were feeling this way. You've always put us first. Maybe it's time to be a little selfish for your own health, too." His words sunk into her, stirring something deep within. A part of her was conflicted. Was she allowed to be selfish? With so many others leaning on her, did she even have the right to seek her passions over her responsibilities? After the call, she returned to her canvas with more fervor. Perhaps the answer lay in asserting her identity rather than shirking from it. She painted with fierce strokes, imbuing the canvas with fragments of her struggle, the colors reflecting her deep yearning. In this moment, oblivion seemed to blend into purpose. What if these struggles birthed a new creativity, one that didn't just highlight her pain, but also her transformation? As she swept the brush downward, creating a chaotic swirl of colors, clarity crashed over her. She didn't have to choose between motherhood and her aspirations. She could embrace both simultaneously. In trying to satisfy all her roles, she might discover a way to nourish herself and show her children the powerful art of balance. Feeling empowered, she set the brush down and stepped back, appreciating the evolving canvas. This masterpiece was a reminder that her journey was complex, layered with the joys and demands of life. As she cleaned up, her heart raced again as a new message chimed in. It was Mike, notifying her of an art exhibit opening next week, one that was seeking submissions from local artists. The timing felt almost serendipitous. Could this be her chance, a stepping stone into her own identity while holding on to her responsibilities? A flurry of excitement coursed through her as she contemplated the implications of submitting her work. But another thought surfaced. If she focused on this submission, could she risk further entangling herself with her past, especially with Mike? The night continued to thrum with potential and uncertainty, a layered canvas in need of brave strokes. She felt the weight of her decisions begin to shift, holding her breath in anticipation for what lay ahead. What if this was the moment everything changed? What if life swept her into a new rhythm, one where she could find balance, finally? The edges of her resolve hardened, and she felt an urgency to reclaim her narrative. But as she drew closer to action, another obstacle loomed on the horizon. A familiar face would soon arrive, challenging the fragile equilibrium she was creating. The next morning, the bustle of breakfast sharpened Sarah's senses. Her children were already clamoring for attention, their eagerness electrifying the air. Each request, each outburst seemed to echo the internal dialogue roiling within her. Today was supposed to be different, the day she would submit her painting, the piece born from the turmoil of her heart. Yet, as plates were filled and juice cups jostled, her focus frayed. "Mom!" Ella shrieked, pulling Sarah back into the present. "I can't find my homework." The weight of responsibility pressed down on her. She could insist on prioritizing her art, show her children that it was okay to aspire for personal fulfillment. But then again, could she justify the risk? "Okay, let's take a minute to find it," Sarah said, digging through Ella's backpack while trying to tether her racing thoughts. The contents seemed to spill like her own uncertainties. Crumpled papers, broken crayons, remnants of responsibility layered atop aspirations. Once the fracas of morning settled and the children were off to school, a stillness enveloped the house. Sarah sank into the couch, the simplicity of silence being a stark contrast to the whirlwind of her thoughts. She fumbled for her phone, scrolling through Mike's message again. The exhibit sat like an open door, and she couldn't shake the chill of hesitation that clung around her. What would it mean to step through and share her work? A small part of her craved validation, recognition for who she was apart from her family. The essence of an artist was calling to her. She needed to explore that identity. Yet the shadows of loyalty to her family loomed large, creating a discordant tension. She grabbed her sketchbook. Flipping it open reverently, she paused at the recent sketch of her chaotic family dinner, the colors still vibrant from the energy it had taken to capture that moment. It had been a hectic, beautiful disaster, so familiar, yet it felt so far from her artistic dreams. Was there a way she could intertwine both her roles? The decision crystallized clearer as she thought of her children. Would they view her pursuit as a betrayal of their needs, or as an example of chasing one's dreams? Turning to the canvas, she dipped her brush again. Each stroke felt more decisive. She was not merely decorating, she was building a bridge between her aspirations and her responsibilities. In the late afternoon, shadows swallowed the remnants of sunlight, when reality reared its head once more. Her phone buzzed, and she saw a text from her brother. He wanted to discuss their mother's house challenges. This was a voice from the past, a reminder of the pressure she felt shackled by drifting responsibility. She hesitated with her finger poised over the screen. Old patterns threatened to pull her back, but she needed to be unapologetic in her priorities. "Can we move it to later? I want to focus on something important today," she sent, feeling a rush of adrenaline. The response was swift, filled with confusion intertwined with concern. Everything okay? Was she being reckless? The question prickled at her sense of control, but the spark inside her dulled the uncertainty. "Just wanted to prioritize my submission," she typed, allowing her self-advocacy to bloom in black and white. As the evening rushed in, she sat down to refine her painting, guiding final strokes with confidence. The colors blended harmoniously now, chaos subdued, a piece emerging that encapsulated her journey. In doing so, she also realized she was reshaping the narrative she held onto. With her piece finally taking on the life she envisioned, boosted by her actions, a flicker of daring unfurled within her. To submit it, to throw her heart into the world, regardless of the voices in her mind trying to ground her. As she stood back, examining her work, a figure appeared in the doorway, the familiar face that had been waiting on the horizon. Her heart sank and soared, wanting to lean into the fear of not knowing what it meant for her balance. It was Mike, a mix of hope and urgency radiating from him, as if he had come to challenge every careful, newly forged decision she had just made. "Sarah, we need to talk," he said. And with that, the delicate balance she was crafting teetered on the precipice of change. What awaited them, and how would it reshape her renewed path? As Mike stepped into the room, the familiar warmth of his presence was overshadowed by the tension crackling in the air. Sarah's heart raced, caught between the estrangement of their past and the possibility of a shared future. The juxtaposition was palpable. Would their conversation lean towards rebuilding connection or unraveling the delicate tapestry she had begun to weave with her aspirations? "Hey, Mike," she greeted, choosing her words carefully, a swirl of emotion brewing beneath her composed exterior. "What's on your mind?" "I wanted to know how you're doing with everything," he said, his gaze steady and probing. "I know you've been figuring some things out lately." The directness made her pulse quicken. It felt too soon, too raw, yet here they were, both navigating their own transformations. "I've been painting," she revealed, the words spilling forth as her confidence began to blossom. "I'm working on a piece for an exhibit. I finally took the leap to focus on my art." His eyes sparkled with genuine intrigue, a flicker of pride igniting between them. "That's incredible. You've always had such talent. I could see that right from the first time we talked." The compliment nestled deep within her, validating her budding ambition. "Thanks. It's been a journey for me, balancing all of this, being a mom and pursuing what I love." She paused, letting the weight of her experience settle between them. "You know how I was always afraid to step outside my role." "I do," he admitted, his voice low. "But this is who you are becoming, and it's amazing to see." For a moment, hope surged, harmonizing with the flicker of ambition igniting within her. "What about you?" she asked, eager to know what hurdles he'd faced during their time apart. "I've been wrestling with my own crossroads," he confessed. "After all this time, I realized I've been living in the past, not allowing myself to grow or even explore new passions." She watched him intently, sensing the vulnerability he was revealing. "I understand that. It can feel suffocating, like there's a part of us waiting to be unlocked." "Exactly," he replied, a sigh escaping him, as if releasing burdens he had long carried. "I don't want to miss opportunities anymore. Not with anyone or anything. I had a lot of time to think about what we had, too." Her breath caught in her throat at his admission. Complications they had once brushed aside now swirled around them once more. Was he hinting at rekindling their relationship, or was this a mere acknowledgement of what once was? "Mike, I want to explore this path we're on, but I need to be clear that it's about transformation for us both. I don't want to fall back into old patterns," she articulated, striving to maintain her ground. "I don't either. We've both changed," he affirmed, his sincerity not lost on her. "That's why I'm here. I want to support you, not just in your artwork, but in your journey to become who you aspire to be. I want to share that space." His words enveloped her like a warm embrace, enticing yet daunting. Was it possible to build something new together while supporting each other's individual growth? As she gazed into his eyes, she felt the seed of hope flourishing amidst the fear. "I think we could try," she responded, awareness dawning upon her of the tightrope she was walking. "Let's explore this, but I need to focus on my art, my children, my journey. It's essential to me." "I can respect that," he assured her, determination gleaming in his eyes. "Let's define this together, on our own terms." With the agreement hanging between them, a sense of clarity washed over Sarah. The weight of uncertainty began to lift, replaced with a shimmering prospect, the intertwining of her creative pursuit and the chance to forge a supportive partnership with Mike. They were two individuals stepping tentatively towards the undefined, not away from their past, but alongside it, infused with awareness of who they now were. As they spoke freely, ideas poured out about her painting, their experiences, dreams unfurling within the sanctuary they were creating anew. Days turned into weeks, where tentative ideas morphed into collaborative exploration. They made plans for Mike to come by, helping her frame her painting, turning the practical into a shared joy. Then came the day of the exhibit, a culmination of the journey they had embarked on individually, but somehow together. As the evening approached, Sarah stood in front of her piece, a reflection of her tumultuous heart, each color and stroke telling a story of resilience and rebirth. Hope swirled within her as Mike stood by her side, pride illuminating his expression. "Sarah, it's stunning," he said softly. You've turned your struggles into something beautiful." In that moment, she recognized her metamorphosis, no longer just a mother defined by others' expectations, but an artist emerging from the cocoon of doubt. They shared a knowing glance, a palpable acknowledgement of the journey they had crafted together and apart. As they spoke freely, ideas poured out about her painting, their experiences, dreams unfurling within the sanctuary they were creating anew. Days turned into weeks, where tentative ideas morphed into collaborative exploration. They made plans for Mike to come by, helping her frame her painting, turning the practical into a shared joy. Then came the day of the exhibit, a culmination of the journey they had embarked on individually, but somehow together. As the evening approached, Sarah stood in front of her piece, a reflection of her tumultuous heart, each color and stroke telling a story of resilience and rebirth. Hope swirled within her as Mike stood by her side, pride illuminating his expression. "Sarah, it's stunning," he said softly. "You've turned your struggles into something beautiful." In that moment, she recognized her metamorphosis, no longer just a mother defined by others' expectations, but an artist emerging from the cocoon of doubt. They shared a knowing glance, a palpable acknowledgement of the journey they had crafted together and apart. As the night unfolded, filled with laughter and congratulatory remarks, Sarah scanned the room brimming with life and connection, embracing the notion that she'd conquered far more than art. She had conquered her fear of vulnerability, the need to balance aspirations with responsibilities, and the courage to embrace love anew. Surrounded by friends, family, and Mike, she reveled in the satisfaction of taking ownership of her journey, one that blended all facets of her identity into a vibrant tapestry. Finally, she could breathe freely, filling her lungs with the invigorating essence of possibility. This was just the beginning, a well-rounded, colorful expansion where she would champion her growth, buoyed by the support of those who truly understood the beauty of her transformation. As the evening wound down, she engaged with others, sharing her story. Sarah recognized her individual success intertwined with a shared desire to redefine connection, validating the importance of both independence and companionship. And so she smiled, celebrating the journey of self-discovery, both for herself and with Mike as they charted a course through the uncharted territories of intertwined futures ahead. With each passing moment, she knew she was no longer holding back. She had stepped boldly into her true self. And with each brushstroke and new connection above satisfying coffee, an ambition of love and artistry danced through the air, proving that the future could be painted brilliantly, just as courage had transformed her once muted colors into a vibrant masterpiece. As the night came to an end and the lights dimmed softly, Sarah resolved that this was only the beginning of something expansive, the merging of dreams cultivated with grace, hope, and perhaps even love. Now more than ever, she understood that individual growth was not a solitary endeavor, but a harmonization of shared experiences, still thrillingly ripe with possibility. Not just for her, for all of them. If you resonate with Sarah's incredible journey of self-discovery and fulfillment, you need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, making it possible for more uplifting narratives to reach those who need them most. Comment below your thoughts, reactions, and theories about this ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who also need to witness this powerful conclusion. Your support really matters.